Since the dawn of time, man has searched for something to unite gamers under one banner. For a brief moment, I thought that Monkey Island's return would be the key, a beloved game's triumphant comeback after a decades-long hiatus, but then the creator was bullied off the internet, so I guess we can't have nice things. My attention turned to unity under hatred, wondering if the collective disdain for loot boxes would perhaps do the trick, but then it dawned on me, the only reason loot boxes still existed was because they were still being purchased. The last bastion came in the form of the coveted N-word, the right of every gamer during an online match, but using the term caused horrendous insults to be thrown at me like racist and anti-black, even though I shook a black person's hand one time, so that doesn't even make any sense. But finally, after centuries of waiting, we have something to help us band together, and it's that I'm pretty sure everyone collectively doesn't care about this Gollum game. Okay, that's a little bit harsh, but also this is one of the most lukewarm rollouts I've ever seen for a video game. Also, yes, I am sick again. I don't know if you could tell. It's not COVID this time. At least I don't think so. Unless I got like the COVID, like is there a COVID 2 that has completely different symptoms? I don't know. If you guys remember, this was actually one of the first games that we saw on next-gen consoles. It was cross-gen, so it wasn't meant to look breathtaking. But back in 2019 and early 2020, it was really this and Godfall that were giving us any glimpse at next-gen screenshots and footage. Since its reveal in early 2019, though, the game's been in a bit of a limbo state. It was supposed to come out in late 2021, then it was pushed to 2022. Then on July 8th, they were like, good news everyone, it's coming out in September, only to delay it by a vague few months, less than 3 weeks later. It's not an ideal release cycle, but it's a somewhat understandable one since, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a bit of a disruption between 2019 and now that delayed a few games. And while this newest shift is pretty weird timeline-wise, Daedalic, the game's developer, isn't the biggest team. They'd fall into what most people would call AA, and their experience is almost exclusively in point-and-click games, so it makes sense why their estimates might be a bit off. What's more concerning than the delays and the long development cycle, though, is the absolute stone-faced response most people have every time this game is shown off. I definitely exaggerated at the beginning of this video. Obviously, there are people who are into this game, especially if you look at its Twitter, you can see a bunch of people staunchly defending it, and more power to them. Don't let people's negativity affect your opinions on the game. If you're into the game and watching this video, don't let this affect your opinion. I'm stupid, don't listen to me. I tried to put shaving cream in my hair this morning. That's not a joke. I need to go to sleep. But I'd say that the vast majority of people have responded to recent updates with something between, wait, they're still making this thing, and wow, they should have not made this thing. And I feel bad because it's a relatively smaller team that's trying something new, but at the same time, I can't act like the game's showings have garnered all that much excitement from me. And you can get a pretty good indication of people's general opinions on it if you just scroll through the top comments of its trailers and gameplay reveals. 2020's teaser, not horrible, you know? A lot of people making the same IGN joke, plenty of why am I getting this instead of an open world action game based on Middle-earth, because that's not something we've gotten before. You know, nothing too vicious, but also nothing that could be spun as positive either. And then we get to 2021's story reveal. This is like Rocksteady releasing an Arkham game where you play as Alfred. Jesus, the gloves are off, I guess. Admittedly, this one feels a bit more extreme on either side. The comments ripping into it are really going hard, way harder than the 2020 reveal, but there are some nice ones thrown in there as well. This one guy saying that they admit Gollum is a sensible choice for a stealth game protagonist, which I don't holistically disagree with, and this other comment saying that it looks mostly great aside from Gollum's cartoonish character model. Keep that in mind going forward. But where people really started to rag on this game was the gameplay showcase. Glad to see they're keeping the PS2 alive with new releases. I am a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, and this makes me want to play Hogwarts Legacy even more. I'd love to play a remaster of this game. The book has better graphics. Oh, stop. It's already dead. Okay. Let's talk about this graphics thing. This has been one of the main criticisms of the game. People have been harping on this since day one. The graphics look insanely outdated, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Gollum was because it's interesting to discuss when an art style can kind of backfire, because yeah, this is a purposeful art style. Daedalic has said as much. They wanted to make something that stood out and wasn't necessarily your typical AAA experience, but I think the visuals have an issue with commitment. Despite being described as having a bold art style, most environments, foliage, and enemy designs look like they're gunning for a decent amount of realism, but are just devoid of texture. It's like somebody took real characters and locations and rubbed them with sandpaper to get rid of all the blemishes, which makes it look less bold and more technically stilted. This angle especially shows off how weirdly smooth and blurry so many textures look. It looks like the non-remastered version of Uncharted 1, and that's not even me trying to make a joke, it just legitimately looks like that. Gollum's character model also looks, to me at least, like it's got a low poly count, not just here but throughout the gameplay trailer. But also, while videos and screenshots show him having the same smooth look as the rest of the game, like that comment mentioned, he boasts much more cartoonish features than the other characters character models with the giant eyes and nose. Smeagol is supposed to be a weird looking dude, but he's also a hobbit that got disfigured because of the power of the ring, so he's supposed to look insane, but not like he's not from the same universe as everything else. You can't just make him look one dump truck away from being Pixar's Gollum and make everything else look like early Halo Infinite footage. I don't know if maybe Daedalic had a low budget and the claim of wanting a distinct art style was them covering up the game looking dated, but here and there you'll see elements that do look more cartoonish, so I think they made it look like this on purpose, but they didn't apply it equally to everything. And making this art style so inconsistent, it looks like the game's trying and failing to look realistic, coming off like a cutting edge title from the early PS3 era and making Gollum look about as natural in this universe as the fever dream that was the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. I don't mind Gollum having a new look, especially because this is based off the book rights, not the film rights, so if they made it look more like the film version, it would just be a breach of copyright. And I'm more than happy if you prefer the game to look more distinct than ultra realistic, but at the same time, this weird shifting middle ground just isn't cutting it. It seems awkward. The other big criticism that people have had on this game is the absolute unnecessarity, is that a word? How unnecessary this game feels. A lot of people have had jabs along the lines of, yeah, when I read about or watch this whole world filled with kings and archers and warriors and magicians, I also always think, man, how fun would it be to play as the crackhead who can't speak proper English? But I gotta say, this is something that I 100% disagree with. I might not be a Lord of the Rings expert, but I have watched all the movies and I've read the first half of the first book 6 times, and I'm pretty sure that a major part of the story is that somehow, despite all the wars and the badass characters and the grandness and scope of Middle-earth, the key to defeating this ultimate evil is 3-foot-tall Elijah Wood. I have no problem with Daedalic opting for a Gollum game. I commend it, actually. Why not explore the weirder side of this world if you have a chance to, especially because, like I alluded to earlier, we already have a pretty major action RPG franchise based off Lord of the Rings. The second one's not great, and I actually kind of hated it, but some people like it, and I'm sure they'll make more action games in the future. There's really no harm in making a Gollum game, screw it, but while I can defend the concept, I can't defend how boring this game is looking. I'm well aware that when I make videos on upcoming games, there's a lot of assumptions involved, which is why I don't make definitive statements about what the game will or won't be, just what it looks like for the time being, but those assumptions are based on what the game has shown us, and what I've seen from Gollum is the most cookie-cutter stealth experience I've seen in a long time. I'm not really a stealth connoisseur, but I think this is a genre that lives and dies by whether it can bring something unique to the table and execute it well. A first-person shooter or a third-person melee game or countless other genres can get away with doing the same basic thing as other games with maybe a different story and different weapons, and that's fine, but to me, stealth games can't really get away with that. I don't really like Origami, but at least it caught my attention, and I give it credit for the cool idea of being essentially a shadow demon. That felt interesting enough to check it out at least. Metal Gear Solid 5 thrives off freedom of engagement and wacky tools. Dishonored gives you powers and an endless number of routes to achieve your goal. Mark of the Ninja is a side-scroller stealth game with more engaging yet quick executions. All we've seen Gollum do in gameplay snippets is auto-climb up brambles, move from bush to bush, and shimmy on ledges. And are those automatically bad things in a stealth game? No, they're pretty standard, but that's also all they are. We haven't seen or heard anything about this game that sets it apart besides maybe the verticality, but here's a secret: the vertical map and weird hunched protagonist for a stealth game has already been done before, so I'm left questioning what Gollum could possibly bring to the table besides its setting, which doesn't feel like enough for this genre. I do think some of the criticisms for Lord of the Rings Gollum are misplaced, but ultimately it warrants a lot of criticism regardless from what we've been shown. It feels like a vague idea for a game that just chugged along somehow without any extra clarity at any point. Games can always surprise you when they release, so who knows, but I do ultimately hope that if this game does come out flat like most people are expecting, Daedalic doesn't take it as a sign to give up on more ambitious titles or ones with weird premises, but instead make sure to move forward with a better sense of cohesion and purpose for their next project, because from the outside it seems like those are the exact things that Gollum is missing. Anyways, I'm tired, so I'm gonna go to bed. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Peace.